Hola querido oyente, por favor suscríbete a nuestro canal. Disfruta viendo. Fui un socorrista en una de las playas más hermosas de la zona. El trabajo de un rescatista no solo es una responsabilidad, sino también una fuente de orgullo. Cada mañana, cuando llegaba a trabajar, sabía que mi labor podía salvar la vida de alguien o prevenir una tragedia. Mi turno comenzaba temprano en la mañana, cuando la playa todavía estaba vacía y el agua acariciaba suavemente la orilla. En ese momento, revisaba mi equipo y mis herramientas, asegurándome de que todo estuviera en orden para estar preparado ante cualquier situación. Luego recorría la playa y colocaba señales de seguridad para advertir a los visitantes sobre los peligros. Cuando las primeras personas comenzaban a llegar a la playa, yo ya estaba en mi puesto, parado en una torre con una vista excelente de toda la costa. Desde allí, podía observar a todos en el agua y responder rápidamente a cualquier problema. Cuando notaba que alguien estaba en una situación difícil o empezaba a ahogarse, me apresuraba de inmediato al rescate. Mi día a menudo era tenso, ya que cada segundo podría ser crucial. Debía no solo salvar a las personas, sino también tranquilizarlas, advertirles sobre peligros y dar consejos de seguridad. Mi equipo y yo también realizábamos sesiones de entrenamiento para los visitantes, explicándoles cómo comportarse en el agua, cómo evitar corrientes y lugares peligrosos. Tratábamos de hacer de la playa un lugar seguro para todos los que venían a disfrutar del mar y el sol. Además, patrullábamos regularmente la playa, buscando objetos peligrosos o situaciones que pudieran amenazar la seguridad de los visitantes. También colaborábamos con los servicios de emergencia locales y la policía para responder rápidamente ante cualquier emergencia. El trabajo de socorrista en la playa requería no solo estar en buena forma física y ser competente en el agua, sino también saber mantener la calma en situaciones críticas. Ser un rescatista es estar listo para cualquier desafío, ser firme y decidido, pero al mismo tiempo mostrar compasión y cuidado por aquellos que están en apuros. Mi trabajo como socorrista en la playa era parte de mí. Sabía que estaba haciendo un gran trabajo ayudando a las personas a disfrutar de unas vacaciones en la playa seguras. No era solo un trabajo, sino también mi vocación, y estaba orgulloso de ser parte de un servicio de socorrismo que protegía vidas y aseguraba la seguridad de quienes venían a la playa. Todo en mi vida me satisfacía. Mi trabajo estable me proporcionaba un ingreso suficiente para mí. No exigía mucho de la vida y no pensaba cambiar nada. El aire fresco y el cálido murmullo eran mi mayor recompensa, y me sentía estupendamente. Pero luego llegó el momento que cambió mi vida. Conocí a Jessica. Fue un caluroso día de verano cuando estaba de guardia en la playa, listo para ayudar y velar por la seguridad de los visitantes. De repente, escuché un grito de ayuda que se abrió paso entre el sonido de las olas del mar. Me di vuelta instantáneamente y vi a una chica luchando contra la corriente y pidiendo auxilio. Sin pensarlo, salté al agua y me dirigí hacia ella. La corriente era fuerte y Jessica ya estaba bastante lejos de la costa. Hice todo lo posible por alcanzarla y rescatarla. Cuando llegué a su lado, estaba exhausta y asustada. La tranquilicé y comencé a llevarla hacia la orilla, luchando contra la corriente. Jessica era una chica encantadora y hermosa. Su cabello rubio brillaba al sol, y sus ojos eran tan profundos y brillantes. Lucía increíble incluso en esa situación. Mientras nadábamos hacia la orilla, le pregunté cómo había terminado en una situación tan peligrosa. Jessica me contó que no había tenido en cuenta la fuerza de la marea y quedó atrapada en una corriente que la arrastró mar adentro. Estaba asustada y no sabía cómo salir de esa situación. La reconforté y mantuve la conversación para distraerla de su miedo. Finalmente, cuando llegamos a la orilla, ayudé a Jessica a salir del agua y me aseguré de que estuviera a salvo. ¿Cómo te sientes? ¿Estás bien? Fue aterrador verte luchar contra la corriente. Me alegra haber podido ayudarte. Gracias. Estaba tan asustada cuando me di cuenta de que no podía lidiar con la corriente. Eres un verdadero héroe. Mi nombre es Jessica. ¿Cuál es tu nombre? Mi nombre es David. Me alegra conocerte. Solo hago mi trabajo ayudando a las personas. Pero me alegra haber podido salvarte. ¿Cómo te sientes ahora? Un poco impactada, pero en general todo está bien. Te estoy agradecida por tu valentía y rapidez de reacción. Nunca olvidaré lo que hiciste por mí. No hace falta agradecer, Jessica. Solo estoy haciendo mi trabajo como socorrista. Pero escucha, deberías revisar que estés bien. Tal vez pueda ofrecerte un paseo a algún lugar para que descanses y evalúes tu estado. Sí, suena bien. Estaba aquí sola y no sé qué hacer a continuación. Me hospedé en un hotel cercano. ¿Quizás puedas llevarme allí? Por supuesto, puedo llevarte al hotel. El auto está cerca y no me importa ayudarte. Solo déjame llamar al trabajo y decirles que llegaré tarde. Después de eso, llamé al trabajo y expliqué la situación. Luego ayudé a Jessica a ponerse de pie y la llevé al hotel. Desde entonces, nuestro encuentro en la playa se convirtió en el comienzo de nuestra historia. Nos acercamos, pasamos tiempo juntos, dimos largos paseos por la playa y discutimos todo lo que nos preocupaba. Jessica no solo era hermosa, sino también inteligente, me inspiraba con su entusiasmo y amor por la vida. Pronto comenzamos a encontrarnos y encontramos apoyo y comprensión mutua. Después de un tiempo, nos casamos y hemos estado viviendo juntos felices durante muchos años. Jessica se convirtió en mi pilar principal y fuente de inspiración, y nuestro amor solo se hace más fuerte cada año. La vida con Jessica es un verdadero regalo para mí, y le agradezco al destino por habernos unido en ese fatídico día en la playa. Habiendo vivido 24 años en un matrimonio conjunto, experimentamos diferentes cosas. El momento más quizás desagradable fue que Jessica tenía un trabajo bastante prestigioso. Era la directora de una gran empresa que se dedicaba a la distribución de productos a una gran cantidad de establecimientos. Ella ya era muy rica cuando nos conocimos por primera vez. Pero en ese momento, no se centraba la atención en eso. No necesitaba el dinero de Jessica. Simplemente la amaba por su personalidad. Pero Jessica comenzó a cambiar con el tiempo. Utilizaba cada vez más el hecho de que ella ganaba mucho más que yo. Empezó a tratarme con más desprecio. Fue muy estresante para mí. Intenté cambiar la situación y hablar con ella. Pero Jessica era bastante poco receptiva. A veces se volvía más sensible hacia mí, pero aún así no duraba mucho. Recientemente, nuestra comunicación ha disminuido aún más. Jessica comenzó a quedarse en el trabajo con frecuencia. Intenté traer el romance de nuevo a nuestras vidas porque creía en nuestro amor. En varias ocasiones esperé a mi esposa cerca de la cena fría, pensando que Jessica llegaría a casa temprano. Claro, Jessica llegaba tarde a casa, me deseaba secamente buenas noches y se iba a la cama. Mis nervios ya estaban al límite, pero no estaba acostumbrado a caer y dejar que todo siguiera su curso. Nuestro aniversario de boda se acercaba pronto. Decidí prepararme para celebrar nuestro amor. Quería sorprender a mi esposa y crear una atmósfera que ella nunca olvidaría. Decidí pasar una gran velada en un lugar elegante. Era un excelente restaurante, en el segundo piso había una terraza magnífica. Alquilé toda la terraza para que nadie nos molestara y pudiéramos disfrutar de esta velada. Además, trabajé todo el día para decorar este lugar, la noche debería haber sido simplemente asombrosa. Jessica dijo que esa noche definitivamente saldría temprano. Le dije dónde venir. Y luego llegó esta noche. Me vestí con una bonita camisa blanca y pantalones, me arreglé de la mejor manera posible para que coincidiera con la atmósfera fabulosa de este lugar. Me senté en la mesa y observé la puesta de sol. El tiempo pasaba, pero nadie vino a mí. El camarero se acercó a mí varias veces y preguntó cuándo traer los platos. Respondí nerviosamente que obviamente no ahora. Comencé a llamar a Jessica, pero ella no contestó el teléfono. Ya estaba empezando a enojarme de verdad. No podía calmarme. Entonces me alteré y salí corriendo del restaurante. Subí al coche y conduje hacia el lugar donde trabajaba mi esposa. Llegué y vi que la luz en su oficina seguía encendida. Estaba terriblemente enojado, solo pensaba en una cosa, que estaba a punto de irrumpir en su oficina y romper su maldita computadora o tirar los documentos por la ventana, porque esa noche no iba a escuchar excusas. El guardia, Jacob, me conocía bien. Jacob, hola. ¿Ya sé que todavía está en la oficina? Hola, David, sí, todavía no ha salido. Ya voy a cambiar de turno con un compañero, y ella todavía está aquí. No me digas. Hoy es nuestro aniversario de bodas, y ni siquiera hoy pudo salir temprano. Sí, David, es lamentable. Entonces ve y sácala de una vez, deja de trabajar. Gracias, Jacob. Y tomé el ascensor hasta el 5.º piso, donde estaba la oficina de Jessica. No había nadie más en todo el piso. El pasillo ni siquiera tenía una luz encendida. Solo un pequeño rayo de luz escapaba de la puerta entreabierta de la oficina de Jessica. Cuanto más cerca llegaba a la puerta, más claramente escuchaba que Jessica no estaba sola en la oficina. Claramente había otro hombre con ella. Me acerqué a la puerta horrorizado y escuché su conversación. Jessica, hoy no eres tú misma. ¿Algo pasó?, preguntó Carl, empleado de Jessica. Sí, olvidé por completo que hoy es nuestro aniversario de bodas con David, respondió Jessica. Al diablo con ella, feliz aniversario. Dijo Carl burlonamente. Estoy de acuerdo, David sobrevivirá. Como digo, así sea. Soy la cabeza de nuestra familia, y él no es nadie, cero sin varita. Me gusta este estado de ánimo. Ven hacia mí, mi leona, y muéstrale a papi tus encantos. Dijo este bastardo y se metió codiciosamente los labios en el cuello de Jessica, lamiéndola sucia por todas partes. Carl barrió los documentos de la mesa y lanzó a Jessica allí, abriendo sus piernas. Estos bastardos comenzaron a tener relaciones justo frente a mis ojos sin ningún preludio adicional. Me enfurecí y entré a la oficina. Corrí hacia este bastardo que estaba concentrado en los encantos de mi esposa y lo sorprendí con un golpe en su hocico. Me di vuelta y aparté a Carl de mi esposa, golpeando su estúpida cabeza sin comprender. Lárgate, criatura. Te mostraré cómo se folla a una mujer casada. ¿Qué te gusta, hijo de puta? Grité, golpeando. Mi camisa blanca ya estaba salpicada de la sangre del bastardo. ¿Qué te permites? ¿Qué demonios estás haciendo aquí? Jessica gritó con horror en su voz. Dejé solo a ese bastardo y dirigí mi atención a mi esposa. ¿Qué hago aquí, criatura? ¿Todavía lo preguntas? Te he estado esperando toda la tarde. Hoy es nuestro aniversario de bodas. Estaba preparando esta noche para sorprenderte y complacerte. Solo quería lo mejor para ti, y tú decidiste pisotearlo descaradamente. En lugar de celebrar tu aniversario de bodas con tu esposo, simplemente te acostaste con ese bastardo. ¿Y qué? Deberías agradecerme que todavía esté contigo. Solo vives en mi casa porque yo te lo permito. Tú no eres nadie sin mí. Te disculparás con Carl en este momento. Y te irás de aquí, y pensaré si debo regresar a casa hoy. ¿Está claro? Jessica me atacó. Una reacción así y todo lo que escuché y vi en estos pocos minutos. No podía ni siquiera imaginarlo. Me quedé en un estado de estupor, y en ese momento el teléfono de Jessica comenzó a sonar. Jessica respondió con el altavoz. Hola, sí, señor Johnson. Dijo Jessica al fundador de esta empresa, quien la llamó inesperadamente a una hora tan tardía. ¿Estás hecha un desastre, perra? ¿Decidiste traicionarme? ¿Crees que no me enteraría de nada? Señor Johnson, ¿de qué está hablando? No finjas ser una pobre ovejita, sé todo sobre tus asuntos con Carl, sobre cómo falsificaste fechas de vencimiento y revendiste productos desechados y remendados. No solo arruinaron el nombre de la empresa, sino que llevaron todo a demandas y pleitos peligrosos. Pero no importa, te voy a hacer la vida dulce. Los dos están despedidos. Pero ahí es donde comienzan tus problemas. Señor, permítame explicar. Jessica intentó desesperadamente justificarse. No necesito tu explicación, dijo el fundador. Jessica se quedó mirando pálida y temblando por todas partes. Bueno, perra, ¿terminaste de jugar? ¿Cómo pudiste voltear la lengua para decirme algo así? Qué pena que no vi antes qué criatura cínica eres. Si pensaste que podrías comprar mi amor y respeto, te equivocaste profundamente. Adiós. Dije, dejando el anillo de boda sobre la mesa. Dejé ese lugar vil para recoger mis cosas. Pronto me divorcié de Jessica. A Carl lo metieron entre rejas, pero Jessica logró evitar la prisión, aunque al mismo tiempo le quitaron absolutamente todo, la dejaron sin nada en la calle. Regresé a mi casa y comencé a construir una nueva vida. Conseguí un excelente trabajo en una empresa donde fui instructor de seguridad. Entrené a nuevos socorristas utilizando mi experiencia. Eso me proporcionó un buen ingreso. Después de un tiempo, me enteré de que Jessica se convirtió en adicta a las drogas y su vida terminó rápidamente en uno de los lugares oscuros. Y tuve la suerte de conocer a Amanda, quien me valoraba mucho más que el dinero y el poder. Y creamos una familia feliz. Si te ha gustado esta historia, por favor dale me gusta y deja cualquier comentario. Esto es importante para nosotros y ayudará a promover este video. Gracias por vernos.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office, angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hope to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.